Welcome back to a very special July 4th episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, we've just talked everything Carolina Panthers. We did an off-season review for them. We did a schedule review for them. I gave them a C+ for their off-season, everything they did, bringing in guys like Deontay Johnson, bringing in guys like Xavier Legette, bringing in a guard in Robert Hunt, as well as defensively, A'Shawn Robinson as the additions. It sucks that they lost a huge, one of the best defensive pass rushers in Brian Burns, and a great linebacker in Frankie Louvu, and a guy that I really liked at safety in Jeremy Chin. But they've got some young guys that, if they develop, this could work out. So I gave them a C+. We also went over their record, went game by game. I gave them a 5-12, but plus or minus 2 wins in that scenario. So I have them missing the playoffs at 5-12, but this is a team that could turn it around. In this segment here, we are going to talk about the New Orleans Saints, another team in that same division. We're making our way through the NFC South right now. We're going to talk about the Saints here, give them an off-season grade, go over all their moves, the draft, off-season additions, subtractions, some free agents that are still out there that they might be able to add to improve. But before we get into that, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to add, go ahead and throw that in the comments, throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around, talking some sports with me on a beautiful July 4th Thursday. Hope you guys are enjoying your holiday. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the New Orleans Saints here. The New Orleans Saints have had an interesting offseason, right? The New Orleans Saints are a team that's kind of treading water, trying not to go into a full rebuild. They've been dealing with cap situations for years and years now, and their offensive line last year was shambles. It was awful. They had a bunch of people retire as well from the Saints, so it's not really a place. So it's not really a huge point of strength for them, and they didn't get too much better at it. But let's start in the draft. In the first round, they went and addressed that offensive line. They went and got Talise Fuaga, who in a draft full of great offensive line talent, he's okay. He's not a guy that I'm like, oh my god, he's going to be awesome, but he'll be solid. I like the idea with the pick here. Throwing Fuaga here. You expect probably that left tackle spot after Ryan Ramczyk retires here, maybe. But this is a good draft pick. It was a draft pick of need, and when you need a guy, you need a guy, right? A pick that I really like in that second round is Kool-Aid McKinstry. Now, he was hurt, so he fell to the second round, pick 9. But again, those were the two most loaded positions in the draft, and I think they did a really good job of getting some of the best available players there. They didn't have a pick until round 5. And then they went and got Spencer Rattler, and that should be interesting. We'll keep an eye on him. He's had mixed reports throughout training camp so far. Nothing too insane, nothing too great, but he's shown some flashes. He's not going to be ready. He's not going to unseat Derek Carr here. He's not going to come in and be the starter this season. I don't know if anybody really expected that, but a nice guy to take a waiver on here in the 5th round. He was highly recruited out of high school, and I don't mind the pick there at all. I like him more than some of the quarterbacks that went in the 1st round. Actually, I like him more as a prospect than Bo Nix even. But that's a whole nother conversation. Outside of the draft, we talk about the Saints' offseason moves. They've had not most of the additions that mattered were going to be on defense, and the big two were Chase Young signing a 1-year deal, fully guaranteed, and Willie Gay Jr. leaving the Chiefs, joining the excuse me, join the Saints here. I really like that. I really do like that for the Saints. Willie Gay is a guy who's all over the place for the Chiefs when he was there. His linebacker role, he signs a 1-year deal with them. And he was always there in pass coverage, in run defense. He's really good at getting to the ball. I love that signing for them. That's my favorite signing that they had. Signing Abrams from the Raiders is another one that I like. If he can stay healthy and if he flashes his potential every once in a while, that is a great pickup for the New Orleans Saints. As far as losses go, we talked a lot about the offensive line. They had a couple people go, let go. I mean, additions. We skipped over the additions for the offense, but they weren't really too big of a deal. They signed a bunch of depth receivers, Cedric Wilson, Equinemi St. Brown, Stanley Morgan, and got some more offensive line help. Shane Lemieux, Justin Herron, Lucas Patrick. None of these guys are going to be huge difference makers on the team, but if any of those offensive linemen can have a great season, that could be the difference between the Saints making the playoffs and missing it. As far as losses go, they didn't lose too many huge players outside of, some offensive linemen retiring. Lonnie Johnson signs with the Texans. James Hurst retired. Andrus Peat left for the Raiders. Those are two offensive linemen. Again, not that big of a deal because the offensive line was awful. They lose Jameis Winston, which is why they go out and get Spencer Rattler, like we talked about earlier. He goes to the Browns, so they didn't lose too many players. The only really two starters that they lost were Hurst and Peat. And again, awful offensive line, so it doesn't really matter. We take a look at where they are sitting as far as, depth chart goes. You've got Derek Carr as your starter. Alvin Kamara is holding out, but he should be back as your running back. The wide receiver room could use a little bit of work. You have Chris Olave. Rashid Shaheed is a solid deep threat, but if he's your wide receiver too, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Michael Thomas is still a free agent. Not sure if he's going to re-sign or if he's going to retire there. We talked a lot about the offensive line. Talise Fuaga, Nick Saldiveri, Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, and Ryan Ramczyk there. Trevor Penning has not worked out, but they have plenty of depth now at the offensive line. None of it particularly great, but they have depth if anything happens. As far as the defense goes, that's probably still the strength of this team. Got Cam Jordan, ageless, doing what he does at his age. He's he's got records for the Saints for playing for sacks, snap, all the defensive records Cameron Jordan has. Demario Davis still there. We talked about Willie Gay already, a huge addition for them. And in the secondary spot, Tyrann Mathieu is coming back. Marshawn Lattimore, if he can return and even be half of himself, it should be fine. They're a little weak as far as corner depth goes, but drafting Kool-Aid McKinstry, if he gets healthy, that should help. You sign Shamir Jean-Charles. He's probably not going to start, but if he can make the team, you have more depth there at corner. So I do like what they did defensively in this offseason. My big concern, like I've been saying, is offensively they lost a lot, and they didn't really do too much to make me sit here and say, hey, this offense is going to be good. Derek Carr is not a guy that on his own can elevate a team to be that elite team that we expect a guy like we expect that the Saints kind of are expecting. I expect them to be kind of average again. This is a team that's been flirting with blowing it up for a long, long time, and they just have not been able to do that. We'll go over their schedule actually in the next segment. Talk about what it looks like, but this is a team that I think is kind of at the end of its run. It's out of gas. It's trying to keep a corpse alive at this point, trying to stay competitive with the remains of the Drew Brees era, and at this point, I think you kind of just have to bite the bullet and let it go. I know signing Derek Carr last offseason to that massive contract doesn't help, but this is not a team that's built to be successful. This is a team that has pieces. It's, you know, like a luxury car in a trailer park, right? That's what this team is. They spent in the wrong places, and it's probably not worth holding on to that luxury car if you can, build back up. So I think this for the off season at least, I'm gonna give them a C. Again, they didn't really do too much. They weren't too active. I like the defensive additions, but they didn't do enough offensively to really move me. And I think they're just kind of treading water. This is a team that needs to make a big switch toward probably in the rebuilding direction. And that front office just does not want to let go. And I can't blame them. That's a scary thought, but it's time. It's time for the Saints to let go. We'll go over their season predictions here in the next segment. But let me know what you thought of the Saints offseason. What grade would you give them? Again, I gave them a C, but let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are. We will go over game by game, give them a record prediction here in the next segment, and then we'll do a special July 4th segment coming up at the very end of our show. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you're just tuning in, we just finished talking about the New Orleans Saints offseason. I gave them a C for what they did. I think they're just kind of treading water. I'm not super impressed by their additions or their subtractions. Again, I really like the signing of Willie Gay, but it's also just 1 year. Same thing with Chase Young. If he works out, that defense could be solid, but it's not really where you want to be. If you're a Saints fan, you're kind of stuck in this never-ending mediocrity, and I think it's time for them to blow it up. But we are going to talk about their schedule. We're going to go over game by game, give them a record. We also did this for the Panthers. We went over their offseason. I believe I gave them a C+. I like their offseason a little more. I feel like they're heading in the right direction. And we also went over their schedule. I gave them a 5-12 record. Before we get into that Saints prediction, though, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, go and throw that in the chat, throw it in the comments. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful July 4th, which we do have a special segment for coming up at the end. We'll hopefully you stick around for that. But we're going to finish up our NFL coverage here today talking about the New Orleans Saints schedule. We just went over their division mate, the Carolina Panthers. They went 12-5, and you already know what's going to happen week 1. The Saints take on the Panthers. I have the Panthers losing that game, so the Saints start off hot, 1-0. Best record you can have, 1,000%. But then they go and take on the Cowboys, and this is not going to be good for them. Just straight up, not going to be good for them. The Cowboys, I have winning this game as the Saints fall to 1-1. This Cowboys team is just better. That defense is going to be really good, and Dak and CeeDee Lamb are going to destroy that secondary. So the Cowboys winning week 2. Saints fall to 1-1. Week 3 against the Eagles. I actually have the Saints winning this one. I know we just went and talked about how I love the Eagles and how I love the Eagles offseason and how I hated the Saints didn't hate, but wasn't really moved by the Saints offseason. But this Saints team at home against the Eagles, I think they'll be able to pull this upset off. You got to throw an upset in there every once in a while, and this is the one. The Saints taking out the Eagles here. Jadeveon Clowney Jadeveon Clowney and Demario Davis, Cameron Jordan, those guys, Chase Young, all of them, devastating and a rebuilt Eagles offensive line. I think this game will be a lot of fun. But I'm taking the Saints in this one, and then they go off and they don't have too easy of a time, right? They take on the Falcons, the Kirk Cousins led Falcons, and I think on the road, I think the Falcons will be able, with all their weapons, to take advantage of a Saints team that doesn't seem too consistent. Is the vibes I'm getting from them. So 2-2 after a loss to the Falcons, and then they take on the Chiefs. Willie Gay going back home, probably going to get some kind of celebration there, but this Chiefs team is much better than the Saints team, and they're going to lose their second straight contest. And then they get the Bucks, another playoff team, a Bucks team that kind of is in the opposite trajectory that the Saints are, right? And I don't really love the situation the Bucks are in. We'll talk about that tomorrow, but I do have the Bucks taking this game, over the Saints, even though it is in the Superdome. So that's 3 straight losses for them, heading to the Broncos, a team that I think might be the worst in the league this year, but they got to get a win somewhere. Sean Payton against his Saints, he knows how they work. And in the Superdome, back home for the first time, I think the Broncos will take care of business there. That's a game that Sean Payton, I'm sure, is circled on the calendar. So that's 4 straight losses for the Saints. After week 7, they fall to 2-5, looking to turn it around against the Chargers, a team that also seems pretty inconsistent. I'm going to give this one to the Saints, even though it is on the road. So they improve there to 3-5. The other Panthers game, like I said, they split this series. They're going to lose this one on the road. And as we hit the midway point of this season, the Saints here currently sitting at 3-6 at the bottom of their division, kind of losing hope. I feel like they might trade a couple pieces. Maybe a guy like Alvin Kamara gets traded here. Maybe this is the sign they needed to finally go into that rebuild mode. But halfway through the year, they're sitting there at 3-6. Looking to turn it around against the Falcons again. Again, I think they'll take this game. Them and the Falcons, I think, are pretty close, but the Saints are kind of directionless. So sitting here in week 10, they improve to 4-6. 4 taking on the Browns, and that defense is going to kill them. That Browns defense is going to destroy this Saints offensive line. It's not going to be a fun day to be a Derek Carr back there. Maybe we get to see a little bit of Spencer Rattler get a welcome to the NFL in that game. But they're going to lose that game as well, falling now in week 11 to 4-7 and getting a much needed bye week. Turn the corner to the second half of the season there. Again, it doesn't really feel like it gets a lot easier. They open up the bye week against the Rams. Matthew Stafford, all reports at a Rams camp are that he is back to Super Bowl winning form. And I really do like this Rams team this year. So I think they're going to lose that one. The Giants, maybe a little fandom got to me here, but in New York, I'm taking the Giants in a Week 14 game. The weather will play a factor, I'm sure, in that one. It's going to be an ugly one. It's going to be a really ugly one. But I'm going to take the Giants to win in Week 14 as well. That's 3 straight losses going to the Commanders, and I don't think it's going to get any better. Again, I like this Commanders team a lot. I like the direction they're going in. Their defense is a mess, but I think the offense has the right idea there. 4 straight losses and going to the Packers. Again, another loss, not an easy one. They've now gone on two separate losing streaks of 4+ games. This is a 5-game losing streak, as well as that 4-game losing streak that they had in the beginning of the year. 2 games left. They're sitting there at 4-11, all but out of the playoff, all basically eliminated from the playoff race here. And then they get the Raiders, and I think they'll turn it around here. Get the Raiders in week 17, get a win, get up to 5 wins, and then close out the season with a win in Tampa. I think they eliminate the Bucks from the playoffs right there with a win in Tampa. They go to 6-11 to end their season. Kind of not where you want to be as a Saint, but it's it's not really looking good for the future of the Saints anyway, right? We talked about how they're kind of all over the place in shambles and they don't really have directions. This, I feel like, might be the year that it finally hits them. Hey, we need to blow it up. We need to let everyone go. And Derek Carr is going to be there for another 2 seasons, but he can be a tank commander for a little bit. Excuse me. Maybe you give Spencer Rattler a shot next season, but I have the Saints falling in this year 6-11, missing out on the playoffs. I just don't really believe in this Saints team. I think it's a team that could have anywhere from, I think, six wins is probably the bottom of the barrel for them. I think you could probably be anywhere from 6 to 8 wins for them, but I'm putting them at 6 because I don't believe in this team. This team doesn't give me anything that says, hey, we believe in us. They're not giving me anything for me to believe in. It's just a bunch of mediocrity over and over again, and they don't have anything special on this roster. And I want to see some change in New Orleans. I have them going 6-11. Let me know what you think of my predictions here. Any games that you think I'm just getting totally wrong. Anything you'd think I'd change? Again, we've gone through these first two teams in the NFC South. I have the Panthers 5-12, the Saints 6-11. I gave the Panthers a C plus for their offseason, and the Saints a C. In our next segment, we're going to do a special July 4th segment talking about, centered around the hot dog eating contest. There's been some controversy this season with the hot dog eating contest as they banned Joey Chestnut because he did a partnership with a vegan hot dog company. Just like kind of similar to what they did to Kobayashi back in 2007. We'll talk all about that, what that means for the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest, and a special event that might be taking place because of it. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on a special July 4th version of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.